Hi, I'm Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God. I'm going to be doing a series that I call Recognizing God's Omnipotence. This is basically a journey that I started on, or I guess I was involved with from the time I was a kid. Right? If you read my books, and especially my latest book, Humanity's Inflection Point, you will get a lot more insight into the background I talk about. But for now, I want to emphasize that our society, I think we're on the wrong track. And I think it's because we've gotten off you can see we got off on the wrong foot on some major things. And I want to go back a little bit before I get into some details on that. One of the big notions, one of the big things that helps us be who we are as a civilization, this goes for all of us, everyone on the planet, all of us alive today and in the future, is that our modern civilization is not that old. We only have a couple hundred years into this modern technological age that we're into. And every so often, we need to take a look and recognize that challenging, unproven but accepted assertions, right? Because we have these things that we accept and we just carry that along and we believe in these things, but we have to facts, science, and other things. In my case, there's a lot of inspiration through fasting and prayer. We challenge existing notions, and that's especially pertinent in the sciences, especially pertinent. Now, I have been a software engineer, so I'm engaged in logic basically all my adult life. And again, through fasting and prayer, I've got these inspirations that I want to get into here a little bit. So if we look back, right, we will see that not too long ago, 1543, right, Copernicus helped us change this notion that the Earth was the center of the universe. Think about it. Up until the 16th century, we believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. Imagine that, up until the 16th century. Even after that, we still had that notion, and I think there's still maybe a few people who believe that the Earth is flat. Again, that went into probably the 17th century, when we realized, no, you can sail all the way around, you wouldn't fall off the edge, that sort of thing. And so, when we just look at it, in the time of our civilization, we had these notions that basically, and that kept us locked into a certain mindset, the way we thought about things, because again, the Earth was the center of the universe. Then the Earth was flat. Now, in 1859, Sir Charles Darwin, through his diligence and seeking truth, seeking knowledge, he came up with the theory of evolution, because he observed facts. He went out there and he observed facts and he reported on what he observed, and so that changed a lot of the way we thought about things. 10 years later, in 1869, we had a similar, and I think in some senses even greater revelation. And I call these revelations because I believe that all knowledge comes from God. And you will see why. This revelation in 1869 by the great Russian scientist Dmitri Mendeleev. He was obsessed, which is what we have to be. Just like I am about this subject now, I'm like, because I will be doing multiple episodes. Here I'm getting into general stuff. I will be going down this road of knowledge and enlightenment, because I believe it can change the actual course of our civilization. So in 1859, the great Russian scientist Dmitri Mendeleev, he was so involved in trying to figure out the properties of the elements. And he said it. He said he was tired, he fell asleep. And in a dream, he said it. He said in a dream, he saw all these elements organized in a table. He says, and I got up and I wrote it down. That table, the periodic table of elements, is probably one of the greatest discoveries or revelations from the source of knowledge. That is the basis of all our technologies, our medicines, because medicines, when we have to combine compounds to create these medicines, when we create things like steel and glass and all of the things we do now, it's all chemistry. And the chemistry is based on recognizing that knowledge of the periodic table, understanding the properties of the elements, how they can be combined, and we are constantly learning. We learned that, that mass can be converted to energy. So all of these things. Now, recognize these things, all these facts have existed throughout eternity. Just like when I get into more stuff about, the life sciences part of it, things like DNA and all of those compounds that go into our DNA makeup and RNA and all the processes, the electrical that goes into triggering all the nerves and all of these things have been occurring for almost, as from our standpoint, forever. We are discovering them. So the fact that Dmitri went to sleep and this organization of the periodic table, and he stated it, came to him, means that it came from somewhere. That is what I consider a revelation for us, because all of God's creation benefits based on these revelations. This is a significant synchronicity that I like to say we missed. 1859, the theory of evolution. 1869, the periodic table of elements. And going forward today, when we think about green energy and all of these things, all of that is based on chemistry. It's based on that knowledge that was granted to us in 1869. Now, as someone who is involved with computer programming and almost all my life, my professional life, now as a servant of the Almighty God, I recognize that, and we all do. We recognize order indicates intelligence. If we go out like we're doing now, we go onto the moon or Mars, or we go out into anywhere in the universe, we recognize order indicates intelligence. Random does not give us order. So something like the periodic table of elements indicates that these elements were created. There is an order in the creation of these elements. And so similarly, in the life sciences, we will see, and I will be going through the rest of this Recognizing God's Omnipotence series, selecting the amazing creatures and phenomena out in nature where we can see that order. We see patterns. And I like to say that especially from a software standpoint, right? Random is something that cannot be predicted, cannot be repeated. If we see something that can be repeated, or something that can be predicted, there are patterns, there are rules that govern whatever we are observing. And this is what we see in the periodic table of elements. All the elements are organized, and we can recognize the characteristics and predict properties of elements before we even discover them, right? Because of that organization. That organization, that order indicates intelligent design. I will go more into the living, the life sciences, where we'll see the same thing. We'll see it with DNA, we'll see it in diversity, and it's really very, very, very interesting when through faith we recognize. So even with all our sciences, we recognize that science, the very basis of our science, are revelations from the Creator. And so I like to refer to what we call the laws of nature as the rules of creation. Think about it. These are the rules of creation that are being revealed to us so that we become better. Unfortunately, we've taken a turn where we've associated random. And I've gotten into that quite a bit, and I will continue to get into that stuff. But I want to spend this series, stay on this topic of recognizing God's omnipotence and demonstrate through as I build on this series, I will select things that are around us all the time, things that we take for granted, and to show that there is an order, there is a design, there is an intelligence associated with all of these things. And I just want to go, quickly over it. Some of the things I'll be going into more detail in the future. We look at the animals, we look at our ecosystem, and I want to contrast it again because our science is pretty primitive, really, when you compare to life and engineering that goes into building an ecosystem. We selectively, all our machines, right? The most advanced computers, even quantum computers, we build a machine that does something. But we do not build anything ahead of it to say, okay, this is going to create it, this is going to dispose of it, this is going to make sure that no tracks of it, there are no remnants of it just laying around. Let me give you an analogy. Compare that to what we see in our ecosystem. Something is born. There is food. There are nutrients that are already around it. So it is nourished. Whether from the parents or from the environment, there is the food and the basic that it needs to grow and thrive. Eventually, that whether it's fauna or flora, right? There's a life cycle, and when this thing dies, the ecosystem is already there to consume it and recycle it. We know about the nitrogen cycle. We know about something dies everywhere, whether on land or in the oceans. There are processes and there are creatures, there are elements in nature that take care of disposal and recycling. We are not there yet, right? All our great thinking is about we build something and then we have issues with, that thing goes into the landfill, or this becomes, it pollutes something, okay? So this is the sort of thing that I will go into, and we can see it with different elements. The key to all of this is recognizing that we are limited. And when we look out in the revelations that constitute our science, we must recognize that is the manifestation of His omnipotence. Our best and brightest scientists today, they all recognize the best place to look for examples of building great things is looking to nature. Right? We look to nature to build great things now. It is unfortunate, I believe, and when you think about it, it is unfortunate that when we look at fauna and flora out there, all the animals, all the plants, right? And I'll go into a lot of things, hibernation and animal GPS, quote unquote GPS, all of these things. You know what we say now? We say nature, because we cannot say, for instance, that a butterfly or a bee or a praying mantis or a cheetah, any animal, a snake, any animal, or even a plant. We cannot say that the plant has the intelligence to train itself and introduce things like color to itself. Think about that. Could a butterfly or a bird color itself? Could it make that decision that I want to be colored this way? So we cannot, it just does not make sense. And so now we will hear again and again. We see order there. And so to recognize the order, we say nature. Nature designed this. What's nature? Well, nature, all of nature is manifestation of God's omnipotence. This is how he designed. And so people think of, as great as we are now, right? We are doing design, and especially from the software standpoint, right? This is where this is really the bleeding edge with AI and machine learning and all of these things. But look at the materials that we use. The materials that we use, it's basically, let's start with, we built dumb machines, right? Internal combustion engines and all of these things, pretty dumb. They did one thing, right? You injected fuel into it, you provide a spark, and it exploded. We built the pistons and connecting rods, and we built an engine. But an engine did one thing. Then we got to the point where now we discovered silicon and all the variations and different materials now that are going into building this green economy and all of these things. But we discover simple elements. We've discovered the ability to combine them. And we build, it's like the chip. From the chip, we get a faster chip and a faster chip and a faster chip and a faster chip. We're going down one road. And that's based on our limitation. This is basically what we know. And it's good. It's great. But think about this. Our Creator built and gave the ability, autonomy to cells through DNA to adapt. Just like we want to give our machines the ability to adapt to conditions, gave that ability to cells so that we can see that when there are external conditions, the cell, somewhere in the DNA, it decides, let me try this, because it's trying to solve that problem without someone tweaking it constantly. There is no need to tweak because the intelligence is already built in, AI. Right? It's already built into cells. This is what we observe with evolution. And this is the mind-blowing thing that, when we look at it, again, like I said, seeing with new eyes, recognizing what's around us we took for granted, seeing with new eyes his omnipotence, where we build a chip, a faster chip, a faster chip, a faster chip, a faster chip. You look at his designs. We see things that have endoskeletons, right? Like us. We have bones that support us. We see things that have an exoskeleton. We see a crab, a lobster. Then we see things like an octopus. It's like, whoa, think about that. Those designs compared to what we design. A chip, a faster chip, faster chip, a faster chip. And so, like I was teaching some kids robotics, right? And so it's like, but it's a chip. And so you have the same chip for different purposes in a robot. But think about this. When we see something like an octopus, and it's like just recently there was, as our knowledge grows, we are recognizing that we even saw like the Porsche spider that seems to have the ability to plan. And so think about this. A spider we are discovering, but that spider has been around and designed with that source of intelligence where we'll see it. And I will go into individual creatures to show the intelligence, because like I said, order indicates intelligence. And we know that, or we believe that the animals, right? We look at an earthworm, we look at a mouse, we look at any creature. We don't give them the because else we absolutely would be able to do it. We would have eyes that saw that like cats. So these are the things I will be going more into. And again, this is no coincidence that you ran into this. Look for more in this series, and I thank you for taking the time to review this. Again, I am Sydney, and I am a servant of the Almighty God, and I thank you for taking the time to view this.